Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Missing Frames. This is the podcast where we watch all the movies we should have seen by this point in our lives. I'm your host, Shawn Eastridge. We are breaking out the holiday spirit, not only on Missing Frames, but on the entire Nerd Party network, a whole network of podcasts dedicated to all things entertainment, anything you can possibly imagine. Head over to thenerdparty.com. Make sure to check it out. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at Join Nerd Party. Make sure you're following the Instagram at the Nerd Party, and there's a Facebook page too, so give that a like and everything will be wonderful. It'll be so festive, you'll love it. We are here right now to start to get into that spirit. I need some spirit. We did a whole Rocky rewatch for Thanksgiving, so now we need some Christmas movies, some holiday cheer. We're going to be watching a very special film that I have never seen, and to do so, I brought on two of my favorite people. First, we've got John Mills, the man who recommended this film to me, coming back again to Missing Frames. John, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you for having me on. Not a sequel, but here I am anyway, because we're in a wheelhouse that I enjoy inhabiting, which is horror, and specifically, subgenre horror. So I'm looking forward to this and getting a reaction.
Also joining us is another dear friend of mine, another OG original Missing Frames host, Richie Pepio, coming back again into the fray to join us for this watch. Richie, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Shawn. Good to be here with John. I not only do I love Christmas, but I love a goofy old movie. Not that this movie's goofy. I'm very excited to see it. I've never seen it before. I've always wanted to, because not only do I love I prefer older horror films to newer ones, because I'm not necessarily a fan of like gratuitous like torture porn. I also love the cast of this movie, and the director is kind of a seminal.
We haven't even said what is the movie. Richie, tell everybody. You're very excited about it, so tell everyone at home what we're watching today.
Black Christmas.
Black Christmas. John's recommendation.
Yes,
I've always wanted to see this movie because of kind of where it stacks in horror film lore, but also because of the actresses in it. I'm a huge fan of Margot Kidder. I love her so much. R.I.P.
Margot Kidder's in this?
Yes. Yes.
spoilers.
I know nothing.
Yep.
Man.
I'm so sorry. No, Margot Kidder, and I know Olivia Hussey from the original Romeo and Juliet is in it. And also, the 1960s Franco Zeffirelli Romeo and Juliet, and Andrea Martin, who is like one of my comedy heroes. She's just hilarious in SCTV.
Oh my God, there's so much to love about this.
There really is.
Well, John, the first time, really, my introduction to this film at all is through you, and it was, I think, maybe. This is how up to date we are on Missing Frames. I think maybe a year or two ago, you told me we should do this for a Missing Frames because I'd never seen it, and you were just like, "I love this movie so much. I can't believe you haven't seen it. We have to watch it." We're finally getting around to it, but that was I know. Clearly I've demonstrated I know nothing. But John, when did you first discover this film, and what is it about it? Can you talk about it without spoiling it? I mean, can you talk a little bit about why?
The whole reason I ever saw Black Christmas is because I am such a fan of older horror stuff, and especially slasher genre stuff. And of course, it always becomes a rabbit hole because, it's like, oh, well, Halloween's a 5-star film. This is the birth of the slasher genre. And somebody can always say, oh, no, it isn't. Not really. It's Black Christmas. And I was like, I would always hear that from people. And I'm like, really? Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what that's about. And it's, I'm being cagey about my reaction to it on purpose because I don't want to, spoil one way or the other, but it is definitely a movie where you see like this puts a firm imprint on the genre going forward. Whether Halloween supersedes it, whether Halloween subverts it, any of those sorts of things, that becomes a really interesting discussion. But Black Christmas itself, just because of the star power of the people who are just starting these like meteoric rises, like Margot Kidder a few years after this becomes Lois Lane.
Yes.
And so it's like
the seminal Lois Lane, in my opinion,
the authoritative Lois Lane. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, to see her in an early role like this, where she's still, you know, after Superman, there's no way she's taking this movie. So you're seeing hungry actors and actresses trying to make their mark. And you'll see a couple of people actually in bit roles where you're like, oh, yeah, okay, I've seen them around before. And so it's just, and it's a really interesting constructed movie. And who the director is really interesting, actually, because of what else he's known for.
It's Bob Clark directed this.
Correct.
He directed Porky's and A Christmas Story.
That's the one,
amongst
right
other
there.
things.
Yes.
So he has
other things that may or may not need to be mentioned.
He has an unbelievable Christmas double feature.
Yes.
In that he has Black Christmas and A Christmas Story. And you will look at these movies and it will sort of baffle you because they are nothing alike. Nobody gets murdered in A Christmas Story.
Well, does anybody get murdered in Baby Geniuses or Baby Geniuses 2 Super Babies?
Outside of audience taste, no, I don't think there were any.
The thing is, though, you got like that almost makes Baby Geniuses and Super Babies, Baby Geniuses 2 better for the fact, the sheer fact that he is able to like have such a wide, diverse palette that he works with, talking dumb babies, slasher film.
Dumb babies, Black Christmas.
No, but I was actually looking up Bob Clark because I only really know him from the aforementioned movies, from Porky's, from Christmas Story, mostly from A Christmas Story, and knowing of this movie. But I didn't realize that just looking his filmography up, that like Porky's was considered one of the earliest modern, I guess, teen sex comedies.
Yep.
So not only did he do the first slasher film, he did one of the most famous and cherished, beloved Christmas movies in A Christmas Story. This slasher film also happens to be a beloved Christmas movie by many. The first teen sex comedy, he did a movie called Moonrunners, which apparently was the inspiration for the Dukes of Hazzard. So it's like, wow, he's, you know, I want to see his early Vietnam War era allegory film, which is inspired by the Monkey's Paw short story. So it seems like he's like, this is just like a gateway drug into a really interesting, all over the place, sometimes crappy, sometimes transcendent filmography.
Well, but that's going to be the interesting thing, I think, because, you know, you guys are deep into film and you know certain signs to look for. Is I think one of the bigger tells that we'll want to get to is, I'm going to put a challenge to you, is like, do you see anything that is signature Bob Clark in this? I want you to sort of like watch it through that lens, but also is the fact that I actually contend that this is not the first slasher movie. It doesn't demean the movie at all, but I honestly think that this is one of those hipster back pocket ones that everybody knows not a lot of people have seen. And so it's like when you like get into you know, I don't know, like psychedelic rock in like the late 60s, early 70s. So I was like, yeah, well, did you hear Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? No. Well, then you don't really know anything about it. It's like, okay. But it's really interesting because I think it's at a tipping point, because right around this time as well, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre comes out. That's much more that one I would point to. I'd be like, yeah, that's a slasher movie. You could argue me into that Halloween simply made it more mainstream accessible. I'm really looking forward to whether you guys think this truly is, you know, that first foray into the modern slasher film or not.
I wonder too if part of the reason people don't talk about this as much is this might be something we talk about post viewing, but Bob Clark in general, because Bob Clark had only had, like what Richie's saying, I mean, A Christmas Story is a seminal film. Porky's, I don't know. I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen Porky's either.
I haven't. I grew up in the era where you were supposed to be a naughty little kid and see it anyway, and I never saw it. Like I just
right. So I don't know.
We'll watch that next week.
Yeah,
we'll watch that next week.
Porky's.
I don't know if that's a film that people necessarily hold in high regard as like, yes, this is the gold standard of raunch. So what's interesting to me about Black Christmas is the idea of, in terms of Halloween, you have John Carpenter, who went on to do so many amazing things. And with Bob Clark, it's like, well, he did A Christmas Story, which is not a slasher film. And also later in his career, he did what many consider one of the worst films of all time, Baby Geniuses. And like, I wonder if part of the reputation and the lack thereof, or the lack of pedigree, or whatever you want to call it, is because of the fact that a lot of times with directors we tend to shortchange them if they don't continually have an output of like masterpiece after masterpiece. Like there are
Mm-hmm.
great filmmakers where you can point to them and say, well, they only did that one movie and therefore they're not great. And it's like, yeah, but that one movie is amazing. Like, can't we give
Mm-hmm.
them some credit for that? I wonder if Bob Clark falls into that category, and if like Black Christmas is going to maybe potentially open my eyes to like, oh, maybe I should be paying more attention to this.
Well, what's really, really interesting, and I have absolutely no interest in seeing them, but there were 2 remakes of this. One very recent, and then one like one came out in 2019, and then a previous one came out in like 2015 or something like that. It was like, well, why would you remake it twice that quickly? And it's been savaged both times that it's been released. And it's really, really interesting because the conceit of this movie, and I'm trying not to spoil anything, but it's definitely of its time. Well, I will go so far as just to say, if you mess with it though, it doesn't work. It's one of those things where if you invert, because in one of the versions they changed, I read the synopsis, and they changed a part of what actually happened in order to empower the female characters. And I'll stop there, except to say that the whole structure of the movie relies on the conceit of it remaining, intact, as it were.
Okay.
So
Is the first are they both remakes? Because what I was looking up like just earlier before our call, it seemed like there was a mythology that the second quote unquote Black Christmas was following
so like
or building
like
on.
a soft reboot sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe. I guess I have to watch this movie and see.
Yeah.
Because from according to the Wikipedia page, it was making it seem like they're connected in some way. The first 2.
So it would be sort of like when they released a movie called The Thing, which was a prequel to The Thing.
Ah.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a good idea. But like,
I forgot that existed.
it
and that was recent.
that may be the case. But it really is. It's one of those things where I guess, just speaking as a slasher and horror fan and everything like that, just having gone through this different series of modernizing and updates and stuff like that with like Rob Zombie's Halloween, and then the Friday the 13th, which is, and then, they tried to bring back Freddy Krueger, and it's like horror movies, I think, are so tricky to do that with. Like horror movies are like, the horror stories we tell are informed by what's scaring us at the time. So an attempt to bring back an older horror movie like that and just be like, and we just made it, everybody has cell phones, it's, you might not tell the hitchhiker story now, because hitchhiking isn't a thing anymore. It went away, because of all of this sort of stuff that happened in real life and everything like that. So you wouldn't want to go back and remake Rutger Hauer's The Hitcher, because it's something that doesn't pertain to today's, to modern life sort of thing.
Unless it's a period piece, but even then, and it's like, what's the point of making it? Unless you're
Right.
saying something totally different, or saying something about that era through the eyes of 2020. But that in and of itself raises the question of like, how much merit does this have?
Right.
Is there a reason?
Right. Exactly. And so, but I mean, like, it's so tricky, because this, like, I think just that horror movies in general are even trickier than most others to talk about without spoiling anything. And I don't even want to toe that line. I don't want to get in trouble there and wind up blowing something.
I am going to do this thing now where I don't know how we're going to do this, since both Richie and I haven't seen it. Usually I have the person who hasn't seen it try to guess the plot of the film.
I've got a great idea.
Okay.
And I'll be the judge here. You guys have a tremendous energy. You two crazy kids. You work really well together. And you're insanely intelligent and talented. Well, Richie is. Shawn, you're there. And I want to see you guys. I want to hear you guys. I'm going to give you 1 minute. Workshop it. bring me this movie as the two of you would see it. Workshop it for me.
All right, Black Christmas. Here we go.
Black Christmas.
It's
Go.
Christmas. It's dark out.
December 25th, nighttime, the blackest of Christmases. There is a solar eclipse occurring, hence, or a lunar eclipse, hence the extra darkness and
But
ominous
wait,
nature.
I think there's something in here where, because obviously there's a cast of young teen girls, so maybe
Young
it's something
buxom
like
women.
they check something out from a library, or it's like a slumber party, and they all decide we're gonna try this ritual in a book I got from the library. Oh,
But
this
the
is so
librarian is like, you checked that out more than 2 weeks ago.
funny. And when they turn around,
Yeah.
she's gone. Like they check it out, and she's like, "Oh, you went to that book," and they're like, "There's something funny about her," and they look back, and it's somebody completely different, and they're like, "Julianne, she's been dead for 30 years." So they check out this book, they do the ritual, and they're like, "Oh, the Black Christmas. It's good. This is just a joke," and then it unleashes something
Right.
that haunts.
It all starts with the Secret Santa gift exchange. So, like, they've played with the book, and that was actually the first gift, because it's like, this one goes to Susan, played by Margot Kidder. Susan loves
Margot Kidder plays
old
all the
stuff.
characters in this version of the film.
Clark, help! Just so she could shout help in her cigarette-addled voice. Yeah. So there's a Secret Santa section where
There's a
and they
Secret
go
Santa
all out.
Sex scene.
Because
This is
Wow,
the
we're
70s,
getting
and
really
sex
racy
in
here.
horror is
Yeah.
like synonymous.
This
yes.
is not racy for the 70s, and and nobody knows who Santa is, but you gotta boink him, and they're cool with it because they're
And
like
it
liberated
turns out it was
women
the
of the 70s.
librarian the whole time.
And see,
Yeah,
this movie here that you've brought, this would be a reason to remake it. You've given it a modern sensibility that is
Right.
not going to be there. I'm going to let you down as gently as I can.
Yeah.
Except for the title.
I
You're
think
pretty
we've
far off.
described Porky's.
I think so, actually. I think so.
Well, I am genuinely excited to see this, mainly because, John, this has been something you have been so insistent I need to see. It was not on my radar at all, but I am excited. Bob Clark's involvement, simply because of the fact that I love Christmas stories so much, and it's like, I never thought of Bob Clark as a filmmaker I would go back and watch another one of his films as something of interest. But Richie, how are you feeling? Are you excited?
Kind of the same boat. I mean, I've known about it for a while because I've kind of been a fan. I've been more of a fan than I am having seen. I've read more about the movies, the horror films, and like the making of these films of this era than actually than I actually am as versed in them as I should. So I've always kind of wanted to I want to, it just it feels very of like the Easy Riders Raging Bull time period that's chronicled in that book that some of the cast members of this movie, particularly Margot Kidder, was a part of. And so, and I always kind of imagine Bob Clark, even though it's Gene Shepard narrating a Christmas story, in my head, he like kind of has Gene Shepard's voice. So it's like, it just feels like it's just Gene Shepard's horror movie. It obviously isn't, but there's some kind of like weird, like seeping of energies between these films.
I will really love to,
yeah.
I would really be fascinated to see if there are comparisons to make between Christmas Story and this, because there have to be. There has to be. It's the only two Christmas stories in his filmography. He made one of the iconic, if not the like most quintessential Christmas movie that is like,
according to Leonard Maltin, it's a near perfect film.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like, how can you,
Christmas
is
Story,
Black
not
Christmas
this.
a warm up to that? Or is it like, what are the parallels? Can you see the seeds of like ideas that maybe are, I don't know. I'm going to be very interested to see how that works.
I think and maybe I shouldn't be going into this movie wanting to like it. I want to like it. I hope I like it. But I feel like I'd like this guy. Like he seems like he'd be at least an interesting conversationalist for the sheer amount of like different styles he seems to be playing with, so for better or worse. So I'm interested to see like what this storyteller does with an early slasher film like Black Christmas.
Well, I'm ready. Guys, let's do this. We're going to watch Black Christmas. We are going to be back, and it's going to be great. So you're going to want to stay tuned.
Now available to own on video cassette.
All right, and we're back. Richie, I don't know. Do you want to go first? Do I want to go? I'm going to go first.
Yeah, you go first.
John,
you're the master of ceremonies, Sean.
I appreciate you saying that,
Master
and
of
I
Christmas.
hope everyone out here listening appreciates it as well. John, I think this movie was great. I was expecting to like it, like be like, oh yeah, I see, but I wasn't expecting to genuinely like it. I really liked it. I think it's weird because I think it has some inconsistencies in terms of like plot holes and things that don't make sense. Like, would nobody think to check the attic?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Would no single person, investigator, anybody think to, hey, there's somebody in the attic? But frankly, not only is it clearly an influence on this genre, it is an excellent film on its own right. Maybe excellent's a strong word, but I really, really enjoyed it. Richie, how do you feel about Black Christmas?
I really liked it. I mean, I guess I could see its influence on future horror and slasher films. It did feel like the perfect kind of dated, like a little irreverent, a little goofy and low budget, but like the performances were very committed. I mean, and also I'm saying those things as like part of its charm. Like I liked that about this movie. And also I just thought the performances were great. I thought it really picks up about halfway through the movie. Once the characters actually start like there's so many warning signs and red flags, and it takes them a very long time to start to get worked up about them. Like even while they're searching for the 13-year-old girl who goes missing, like the characters whose own friend is dead in the attic are also like, it's cold, maybe we should give up. And even the dead girl's dad is like, yeah, it is cold, let's leave. Well, so I mean, it feels like the stakes are a little all over the place, and in a sloppy way. But I think overall, you could, as Sean said, like you could see this film's influence, and in its own right, it is very successful. It scares. It is unsettling. It is unnerving. And I thought this movie ripped off. We were talking about this before, Sean. I thought this movie ripped off the calls coming from inside the house from When a Stranger Calls, only to find out that came out in 1979. This was 1974. Right. So this totally beat it too. And When a Stranger Calls gets all the credit for that plot point.
That's right.
I did not realize that this was the call is coming from inside the house movie, which made it just like, it was like icing on the cake.
Yeah, and because that was an urban legend that had been around for a very long time, and so that's that was their in, and it's I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it as much as you did. I agree with you. There are severe problems at certain moments with this, not the least of which being the general intelligence level of the characters, where it's like, like, I mean, I guess you could say that establishes a horror trope there, where how many times you watch a horror movie, you're like, come on, what are you, stupid?
Yes.
I'm going to go out. There's a sound outside. I'm going to go outside alone in my pajamas. Why?
Right.
What? You're safe in the house.
Right.
But and there's a ladder to the attic. I can't imagine anybody using that to get in the house. But it's I think it's really interesting too, because the part of the charm, I think, is the fact that it harkens back to this more analog time. And I know how easy it is to sound sort of like patronizing when you say that sort of thing. But I remember landlines, and I remember prank calls, and I remember those sorts of things. And it's like this is built on that great foundation of the cautionary tales that populate the urban legends about, that were all told to try to drill into kids to be careful and think twice and check every corner, sort of thing. So, it's got all the
caller ID. There's no way of but I will say this, you don't hang up the phone the second somebody starts saying that. It's just funny the way they're like, hello. And then this
they
guy
get that all the
most
time from all the horny caller
terrible
guys.
things. And they're just like, I don't appreciate this. You need to stop calling. And he just keeps talking. I was just like, okay, you can hang up. I don't know. It's great. It's all great, but that was definitely one of the moments where it's so funny because a lot of times I think in a movie less um confident in its directing, in its performances, in every aspect of its production, you would immediately just be like, oh, this is so stupid. And I did think this is really stupid that they're just taking all this abuse and just saying, you are so rude, and they're just
Right.
letting him talk and say these awful things. But there's something, it is really effective. The creepy, even some of the more ridiculous, like the guy going, "Rah, rah,
Well,
rah,"
you
like
know what?
some-
I was wondering if that was inspired, and probably even subconsciously, because I didn't even see this in the trivia or on any of the websites going into detail about the making of this movie. Like, I wonder if the voice and the almost nonsensical but evil sounding noises was inspired in some way by The Exorcist. Just because there was
Has to be.
something unnerving and
Okay, I
demonic
can see
about
that.
what he was saying.
It has to be. I felt the same way because there is this sense. One of the things I really love is that you never. What a brilliant idea to never see, like only catch glimpses of it. Because I
Mhm.
love. There's something about it, and
Very
this is why I think
Jaws-like,
Ridley.
in a way.
Yeah, it's Jaws like. It's Ridley Scott's Alien. Like the reason those films are so effective to me personally and to many people is because you don't see the monster for so much of it, and your imagination has to make up for that kind of that gray area where you don't know what it is. So I thought that was a brilliant choice to commit to never fully seeing who this is,
Right.
what they're doing, only catching glimpses of it, and also the commitment to the first person
Yes.
perspective, which I was immediately like, oh yeah, this is Halloween. Like, no, this is clearly an influence on the opening of Halloween. But I thought that was so brilliant and not tacky or
No.
like gimmicky like it could have felt. It was actually really effective and really impressive that they pulled it off, considering what technology was available. I would love to know how they pulled it off, honestly.
Well, the cameraman had he built a special rig that was on his shoulder. Like he climbed the side of the house and he had the camera.
That's what I'm saying. It looked like it wasn't like there aren't any effects to hide it.
Right.
Like it's very clearly in camera
They
stuff.
wouldn't
with
have had the
guy.
budget to do that either, really. Probably.
Right. And given the fact as well that it looks like I couldn't find the technical specs anywhere, but it looks like it was shot on 70 millimeter because the halos, from lights and stuff like that were
Which I love.
circular, not. It wasn't shot anamorphic, and it was. I mean, the version I watched, at least on Amazon Prime, was 2.2 to 1, and I think that was like typically the 70 millimeter ratio. I could be completely wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that when it's a circular light halo, like JJ's lens flares are all anamorphic, but this one was circular. And I think that has to do with the type of lens that you use in film stock.
Die Hard has a very particular lens flare in it as well,
Yes.
and I think Die Hard was shot that way. I'm going to assume you're right. I will be delighted if you're wrong, and we'll catch the ire of our listeners. But
I just want to
also,
say that I've been influenced by Shawn on a Phantom landline. And that if I'm wrong, it's his fault. So there you go.
Just put all the complaints back to me.
Yes.
But I think there's a lot of stuff in this film that I think it comes from the technique. The script is not bad. It's just definitely, I can see in lesser hands this being a really schlocky movie.
Right.
And it was received as a schlocky movie.
Right.
And I'll be honest, like the title Black Christmas is kind of schlocky. I frankly did not think of it as a response to White Christmas, which I guess that makes me an idiot, but I was thinking, oh, it must be like a blaxploitation movie or something. And I know they initially changed the title because they were afraid people
for that
would
reason
think that. But I remember somebody pointing out like, no, White Christmas, Black Christmas, and I was like, I'm a smart person.
And you know what? It does do for Christmas movie. It transforms the Christmas song catalog especially in a classical way into like this very horror sounding, like uneasy, unsettling vibe that permeates throughout the movie, much the same way that like what Jaws does for beaches, this movie does for Christmas. Um, and I thought actually the sound in general was very effective. And when they're not playing Christmas music over, when they're not like doing their own kind of take on Christmas music, or like that long sequence of the kids caroling, like when
Yes.
Yes.
when
While Margot
Olivia
Kidder
Hussey
is
should be
getting
worrying
stabbed
about
by
her
a
friends
unicorn.
getting murdered by a glass unicorn, glass menagerie nightmare. She's listening to like this joyful child noise, but the sounds are so effective and unnerving. Like just the sounds of the creaking, the sounds of the killer slamming on the door when Olivia Hussey is in the basement.
Oh my God, yeah.
Mhm.
Him like just grunting and moaning, obviously, but like there's so many great noises that you could like watch this with your eyes closed and be creeped out.
The ambient industrial soundtrack, like the like it, which is clearly, I think it's something designed to mislead us because it sounds like somebody slamming on a piano
Mhm.
chords, and
Mhm.
Peter obviously makes that noise, which is a great misdirect because it's like, okay, is this Peter the murderer? But you know
Right.
what it reminded me of is the video game Silent Hill. And I don't know if anybody else in this group has played Silent
Nope.
Hill, but
No.
Silent Hill for sure must have been influenced by this soundtrack,
Probably.
because it's almost spot on identical to some of the music cues in that video game.
I wouldn't be
But I
surprised.
for a film in the early 70s to go with that, I mean, I know this was an experimental time for music. Electronic music was coming out, so more ambient and weirder sounding stuff was slowly becoming the norm. But there's something that makes it such a like guttural, otherworldly, demonic part of this film that it just makes it that much creepier. And I agree. I
Mhm.
think the sound design is so good. And there's especially the last like 20 minutes of the film where she's trapped inside and this
Yes.
guy is like sneaking around the house and banging on stuff like you were saying, Richie. I was just like so just floored by how effective it was.
I have a question for you though, because we're talking about sound and music and everything like that, and this was when we were first discussing in front of this. Is there anything in here that you think is a tell that would say to you as a movie fan that the same guy directed A Christmas Story?
I was thinking about this, and really the only things, I mean, I guess it is like the film quality, the halos around the lights. There's almost kind of that classic feel in
Mm-hmm.
around the Christmas lighting in A Christmas Story, but I really
Yes,
just
I
think
was
those are
thinking
the
the same
techniques
thing.
of the time. And also I thought it was interesting. I think there's a lot of tinsel on their Christmas tree in Black Christmas, and there is a lot of tinsel on the tree in A Christmas Story, but it almost looks like freaking Halloween spider webs are like all over the Black Christmas tree. And then the dad Darren McGavin curses all the time in A Christmas Story, and every single character curses like a sailor.
Well,
In this movie,
there's some
Black Christmas.
irreverent humor in the film that reminded me of Christmas Story. Like there's a
Yeah.
point in Black Christmas where the first 30 minutes where I was like, is this going to be more tongue in cheek? Because especially the head of the sorority, or the lady who owns the home,
Yeah.
her comedy beats with the dad who's looking for his daughter were so overt and clearly played for broad laughs, because the dad comes in and he's like, what's this poster on the wall? And she's like, trying to cover it up. Very like, so I was like, is this going to be more kind of like purposely campy? And the film eventually kind of just goes straight into horror thriller. But I think so some of the humor for sure, like I was laughing a lot more, not even at the stuff I think was like intended to be like some of the edgier jokes. Like Margot Kidder was clearly designed to be like she's so edgy and everything
She's
she
looking
says
at
is so
Playboy
funny.
while the dad's worried about his daughter.
That's right.
Yes.
So I think some of the more comedic stuff came from like the goofy, I don't know the name of the woman who plays her. But that reminded me of it. What Richie was saying about the lighting, the way the Christmas lights look was very like definitely very reminiscent of A Christmas Story. The house, the shot of the sorority house looks almost identical to the shot of Ralphie's house.
Even the inside, the landing is kind of set up. The way the
Yeah, like
stairs
just-
lead into the front door is set up the same
and the
way.
decorations and stuff. And it is the same DP. It's
really?
Reginald H. Morris. He shot both films.
Well, that makes sense.
So there's that grounded, gritty, almost grimy feel which A Christmas Story is not grimy, but it definitely feels like cheap. It feels like it was a cheap film.
Well,
Put like
yeah, I mean, the thing is, like A Christmas Story, they're in the newly burgeoning suburbs, like they walk through a junkyard on the way home, when he gets in the fight with Scott Farkas.
Yes.
They're going by like all of these rusted out cars and everything like that. So I think that there's a very and I know how this will sound when I say it, but there's a very sort of like working class, sort of like visually working class sort of thing that you tie in with this
Yes.
specific look, which I think actually heightens A Christmas Story because it makes the family much more humble. You're not watching a rich family having Christmas. You're watching Joe Sixpack and his family having Christmas. And so you feel a
Yes.
lot more empathy with them.
And there's this myth about the 50s that there was like there's so much gloss that our nostalgia places on the 50s, and A Christmas Story does a great I think that's why it's so appealing. It does a great job of showing that there were trashy people back then too, and
Yeah.
there was like there were classless people back then, and people were real back then. They were real and relatable and believable.
Well,
Right.
those are definitely the comparisons for sure. Like, I mean, obviously these both take place around Christmas, but then there was something I started thinking about this because besides the obvious comparisons, there isn't a whole lot of overlap. And then I started thinking this, and this is not a knock against the film, but I'm very curious what the both of you think. So Black Christmas taking place at Christmas 100% adds to the mood and the feel of the film. Like, it's definitely an important part of the movie, but there was this part of me that felt like, there's nothing in the script that directly references the holiday. There's no like the killer is not using like tinsel. He's not using like it wasn't necessarily tied into the holiday. Like even Die Hard has like I have the machine gun, ho ho ho, and like Richie was saying, the Ode to Joy, and like all these moments that are tying it into the holiday. Black Christmas doesn't, except for the production design and the music.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this part of me that wondered, because I know the script was originally, I think it was originally entitled, what was it? It was
Get Out, something
yeah,
like
Stop Me.
Stop Me.
Stop Me. So I wondered if like maybe arbitrarily, not arbitrarily because it's so a part of the film, but I wondered if the film originally just didn't take place at Christmas, but they decided they needed some sort of visual edge to kind of give it a certain feel. And I wonder how you two feel about that. Like, is it a movie that necessarily has to take place during Christmas? Because I think it's enriched by that fact.
I agree.
But there's nothing in the context of the film or the story that is necessarily Christmassy.
It doesn't need that, but I like it more. I think in the script, I don't know if this is in the original script, but I mean, story-wise, there are like the carolers that come by. There's the fact that it's cold, which don't necessarily need it to be Christmas. It's in Canada. But I think also the fact that like everybody is leaving for the holidays or is about to adds to like a certain level of urgency that you don't necessarily need to set it at Christmas for, but like you said, it helps. I think it certainly enriches the movie.
I think that this becomes just another horror movie, another scary story. I think that the Christmas thing is a lot like, in the 80s, they then leaned on, the more prurient, nudity and sex and those sorts of things. And I think that when you set something like this against a traditional time period that evokes that very childlike, you want to feel safe at Christmas. The holidays are all about making you feel safe and warm and loved. That's the intention. And then to set something like this at Christmas, it gets you right at that emotionally vulnerable moment, the same way that like you're vulnerable, when you stop to take your shower at a hotel, you're not expecting somebody to, bust in and stab you to death. And so you're really caught off guard. Like we let our guard down in certain times, and Christmas would be one of those times where we're used to just sort of like kicking back. And it's like, we have almost this bubble built around it of like nothing bad can happen at this time of year. And it's like, oh no, bad things are still happening all over the place.
That I think is the best argument for it, because regardless of the context, I think the idea of violating Christmas as a holiday is a very strong like loss of innocence, an attack on that that sense of joy, and all the elements of like the songs, the carolers, the lights and everything. I think you're right, John. I think it's just the idea of this violation of something we hold as pure and safe and magical, and this just blatant attack on it.
Right.
There is one more thing. I found this in my notes. One more thing that connects Christmas Story to this movie, and I don't know if one of you said this, you might have, but the guy dressed up as Santa, the disgruntled Santa.
I did not say that, but
Santa
yeah, no.
in A Christmas Story
Yes,
at
that's
the
right.
mall.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, there's another connection there. Just an angry, upset Santa who doesn't want kids to sit on his lap.
He does
He's
take,
very,
I guess
very-
Bob Clark does take the wind out of the sails of, I guess, the overblown sacred nature of the holiday. In its own way
Yes.
with Christmas Story and with this. I think something else about the Christmas holiday too that might be more subconscious, and I think you can each read into it your own way, but Jess's pregnancy, I mean, Christmas is all about the nativity. And
Right.
and the newborn baby Jesus is like that's the reason for the season, if you will. And here she's like having this own personal struggle over like whether she should keep the baby and whatnot. So I feel like that takes on an additional level of meaning when you look at it in the holiday.
I like that you point at it that way, because that's actually a bit that I always sort of struggled with, because I think that it becomes one of those things, because Shawn, I think you said earlier about, or Richie, you might have said it, where like, you said it, Richie, where like the stakes are all over the place. Like it seems really heavy and important in one scene, and then it's like they're like, it's
Laughing
cold.
and
Screw this
joking.
13-year-old. Yeah, 13-year-old's missing. Whatever.
And then the next scene immediately, like Andrea Martin goes from 0 to 60, where she's hysterically crying over like her lost friend, but like a minute ago she didn't even care, and it's not like it just didn't seem.
Yeah.
It didn't seem on purpose. It seemed like a flaw in the continuity of the movie, but
yes, for sure.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where that's one of those story points where I'm like, it's actually, if anything, more believable. Just that he like, I know, like it feels like they threw that in there to try to give it an escalation. When they've already given you, like, all they need to do is show him being an ass and then smashing the piano and
Being
failing his
possessive,
thing.
yeah.
And it's like, you don't even need that extra little bit. It's sort of like, Dirty Dancing, where it's like, you didn't really need to throw it in there.
Well,
it all works without it.
The movie plays their hand literally in the dialogue, to your point, because it's like if this movie surprisingly has like a mostly female cast. The leads are all the women, really. There's like a couple bumbling cops, and there's the boyfriend, Jill's boyfriend in particular. Or wait, what's her name again? Jess.
Who, by the way, is there's
38 years old.
Well, he's also Dave from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes,
which he had done 6 years before this movie.
Which I can't name another movie I've seen him in. So now I've seen him in two films: 2001: A Space Odyssey and Black Christmas.
Yeah,
didn't he come back in 2010?
I don't. Maybe he did, but like in this film, he's playing a 38-year-old college student.
He was in grad school. He was working on his master's.
Dude, I didn't know he was
playing.
in grad school. Nobody said he was.
Oh no, I'm inventing that.
No,
that he was pursuing
it.
a master's degree in piano playing. That's what he was going for.
I mean, there was one line. There's a line that they share though. I took copious notes while I was watching this movie. But there's a line where like they're sitting together in the den. Claire has been dead since like the first 10 minutes of the movie in the attic, rotting away, and they're talking about like, he's like, I switches his course after he ruins the piano in the concert hall. He's like, you know what, I don't need music. And then she's like, no, I gotta get rid of this baby because like, there's all these, you want to be a musician, and there's all these things that I want to do. But anyway, but like screw character development for the main character of the movie.
Right.
I just thought that was so funny that we're like, we know what he wants to do. She doesn't really matter. Like she has talents. It doesn't matter.
We know she doesn't want to have a baby.
That's all.
We know she wants to have an abortion.
There's like the scary one, the crazy one, and then the one who doesn't want a baby.
Well, we also know that she probably wants better phone etiquette because she's the one that somehow always gets the phone calls.
Yes.
So,
That's
which
very true.
is, one thing I go back to is I want to ask you guys how I think she works fine in the role. I think she does everything she can with what she's given. But what did you guys think of her?
Olivia Hussey?
Yeah, Olivia Hussey. Do you think that
um,
she connected, or do you think that she was shooting too high? Do you think that she was
some
the right
of the performance
person?
Yeah, some of the so first of all, Olivia Hussey is my new crush. I've never seen her in anything. That I think might distract me from the fact that her acting is a little all over the place. Her accent threw me off. Like I couldn't
Mhm.
tell if it was a put on or if it was real. And then I couldn't, even if it was real, which I'm pretty sure it is, I couldn't place the accent. So it was very hard to. It reminded me of Anna Paquin's like New Zealand accent, where it's like sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. That kind of threw me off. I think she's really, really effective in the final
Yes.
scenes
Mhm.
for sure. Like that terror feels palpable, and it reminded me a lot of Jamie Lee Curtis and Halloween. Just that frantic, like this guy won't stop coming after me, and just that sheer desperation. And Margot Kidder was the one that kind of felt like, is she acting or did they just get her drunk and let her do whatever
Apparently,
she
she
wants?
would drink. She was drinking actual alcohol in the movie.
It definitely, there was a couple moments where it was like, this isn't quite as overblown as it needs to be actually funny. I like her in the film, but there were definitely, she was a little spotty and Olivia Hussey was a little spotty. Really, the whole cast is spotty except for John Saxon. And is it
yes.
Marion Waldman, who's Mrs. Mack, is she
the
the
drunk.
Oh, the drunk sorority mom.
I thought she was
Yeah.
great. Really, I this is a long way of saying I liked Olivia Hussey a lot. I think she embodies, if we want to call her the first final girl, I think she embodies all the qualities that would become very much associated with that type.
What I like about her, though, is that she's pregnant. She's got a boyfriend. You know, the quote unquote rules of slasher films. This movie doesn't establish them necessarily.
Mhm.
It kind of kills off everybody. It almost hints at the fact that she might be killed off during the credits of this movie, the lead girl. So I like that while it does kind of defibrillates the slasher genre, but it's not set in stone yet. So like anything can happen in this movie. I guess to the performance, just to speak of the performances real quick. I really liked everybody, but it took me a bit to warm up to it. And I wonder if this movie was shot in continuity, just because it feels like everybody's kind of like figuring out the movie during the first 20 minutes. And there's a lot of like what Shawn said too. I agree with him. I feel like I came into this like Margot Kidder being and Andrea Martin too being the two actresses I knew the most. I did know Olivia Hussey from Romeo and Juliet. I thought she was great in that. I thought she was great in this. But like Margot Kidder in particular, although most of the other characters do this too in the beginning, there's a lot, like everybody's kind of an ass, and not in an endearing way. Like it's hard to like these characters at first.
Yeah.
And that's not a compliment. It doesn't hurt the movie overall, but it makes it take longer for me to warm up to the movie.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's just like they're trying too hard to be funny. The actors weren't necessarily on the same page at first. And there's a little bit of like the counterculture era's like contempt for the man that almost shows like not only in the way they interact with the police, but the way they interact with the dad. That's like almost too mean.
Yeah,
I don't need nice characters, but it's like if you want to root for these people, and the movie wants us to root for these girls, it makes it hard. Something interesting though that I did like was the fact that they killed off Claire, and in future slasher movies, Claire would be kind of the character type that would survive, and they killed her off early. That she was the first one to go.
No, I mean, just to sort of speak to that point, right? In terms of everybody being an a-hole, is like you have Margot Kidder giving, oh, what's your exchange, right? And this is my goodness, this predates even me, right? Like where you have the 2-letter exchange and then 5 numbers or whatever, like
right.
Instead of all digits. And fellatio 3, whatever the numbers are, and of course the the innocent old cop doesn't know, what she's saying, and she's having a giggle at it and everything like that. That's the type of thing where I think a better structured script would have worked really well to have some sort of direct consequence, so that instead of them laughing about it and then they're like, she gave us the wrong exchange, ha ha ha, like have it be something where they can specifically say, oh, we would have been here earlier if your a-hole drunkard of a sorority sister had given us the actual friggin' number, you morons. Like,
right.
I did like when John Saxon is walking down the stairs with Olivia Hussey and the other girl, there's a moment where he's like, oh, was that your friend at the police station? And then they all start laughing, and it felt like a very sincere moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it didn't feel like it was acting. Like, it felt like they were all breaking character, and John Saxon just like played with it and went with it. And I feel like if you rewatch that scene with that in mind, I think it's brilliant that Bob Clark left it in. And I think Bob Clark is very good, just demonstrated from this film and Christmas Story, at finding those like
human moments
in the chaos, like these very like, just like, oh, that feels very real.
I'm really glad you said that about finding the human moments, because I agree. I think John Saxon is the Darren McGavin character for the director here.
100%.
You know, like he's his in. This is the guy that makes sense to him out of all of the other characters that are.
And he
going
really,
around.
when he shows up, he calls everybody else's shit, and there is a bit of an order to like the search, to the cleanup crew, just like, all right, we gotta like take care of the public relations disaster that's brewing here and make the girls feel comfortable. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. He's a lot of the heart of the movie, but obviously Jess is the lead, the female lead.
Yeah, but I think every director, no matter how good the central character is and the cast is, like there's always you can always find that side character, I think, or it could be a main character. So obviously Darren McGavin is a main character, but it's not the main character that is the in for the director. I think that there could be a really interesting sort of thing to sit down with different movies from different directors and say, okay, who was the person that was them? Who embodied them at some point in this filmmaking process, where you can see that that's the personal one, that if there was one character that had the most heart from the director, who was it? So, and I think it was John. I mean, I definitely hope it's not Billy the Killer. Because that would be awkward.
I think he did, or he was reading lines on the set. He doesn't play Billy himself, but I know he was reading those lines. Bob Clark was reading the lines.
Well,
I couldn't do that.
But he was actually he was doing not the obscene, like really vulgar stuff. He was doing some he's like some weird stuff, but he said he wanted them to feel like not as dazed by it. So the stuff he was saying wasn't as terrible as what it would end up being. And I think he did that on purpose so that they would underplay and be kind of like, oh, well, which I think kind of works. But also when you're watching it, it's like, why would anybody listen to this for longer than 10 seconds, 5 seconds?
As somebody who was a victim of, and also a perpetrator of, a great many landline prank calls, you didn't get that far into it. It was like a click. Okay, it's this guy. Yeah. Whatever.
And so, considering the stuff he says, it's a little bit more ridiculous. Something else I wanted to bring up are the kills in the film, because any great slasher film should have some great kills, and this film does have great kills in it. There's the first kill, which is very disturbing. It's the poster for the film, but the girl just left in the rocking chair with the plastic bag around her face. There's the hook to the face.
The way that is shot too, from like the perspective of the hook to the perspective of the sorority mother to jump cut to the taxi driver at the door, which is almost like it's almost humorous in the way the smash cut happens. It's great. Probably my favorite kill in the movie.
Those are great. And then of course the glass unicorn killing Margot Kidder is great with the music outside. There's some brilliant filmmaking here for sure. It's funny to me, and I really think it has to do with the fact that Bob Clark, who clearly has chops, then kind of like his career just didn't have as many projects that sang like A Christmas Story or this, or I haven't seen it, but I assume there's an audience out there that still roots for Porky's, but like, it doesn't. I think if Bob Clark had made maybe one more masterful film, Maybe he has, and I don't know what it is, but I don't think many people are talking about much else in his filmography.
Yeah.
I feel like that works against this film's reputation. And also, to be honest, I was joking about it earlier, but I do think the title is a little weird. It's a weird title. And for me, frankly, Black Christmas sounds, again, like a blaxploitation film. I don't initially think of like, oh yeah, White Christmas, Black Christmas. It just sounds like a cheap B movie. And that's
So-
kind of what this
It
is,
is
but it's
that,
made
but-
with more
yeah.
elegance and thought and skill than your standard horror slasher B movie.
But how do you feel about, because it was originally released in the States, I believe, as Silent Night, Evil Night.
I prefer Black Christmas because Black Christmas is short to
Same.
the point and covers it.
I like it more thinking about it as like, oh yeah, a contrast to White Christmas. But I wasn't thinking about it at the time because I'm a moron. Clearly.
So let me ask you guys, because the title it was originally released in the States as was Silent Night, Evil Night. There was a movie about 10 years later that was released called Silent Night, Deadly Night.
that I would have
Um,
liked.
Have you
for
seen it?
this. No.
No,
You would
I
not
haven't.
like it.
I would not
promise
like that film, but I like that as a title for this.
you would have liked
I prefer
Silent Night,
Black
Deadly Night
Christmas.
better. Well, then that is okay. So neither one of those titles would work for you.
For me, I
Richie,
prefer
like-
Black Christmas. I like
Okay.
Black Christmas. Maybe because I've known about this movie for a very long time. Even since I was young, I've just never seen it. So maybe that kind of helps me accept it as the title for this. I mean, when I think of Black Christmas, black comedy, just black about in reference to the macabre or the dark side
I
of
guess
humanity.
I'm thinking of Black Dynamite.
Well, I mean, that's why they changed the title in the 70s, because they thought that they were worried people would think it was a blaxploitation movie.
Right.
I dig the title. I can't think of a better, like, I mean, if Nightmare Before Christmas hadn't existed as a movie, I mean, maybe like A Nightmare Before Christmas would work for
Oh
this.
yeah.
But like, I feel like it serves its purpose. Anything else, like anything too schlocky, like Silent Night, Deadly Night, I feel like brings more attention to
Or
the
like
title.
Jingle Hells.
Yeah, that's not what the movie is not meant to be. It was treated upon its release like a schlocky horror film, but it's not trying to be that. It's almost like it's trying to be a character study that also happens to have like everybody dies in it. So I feel like anything that's like any title that sounds too much like a B movie or an exploitation movie, not blaxploitation, but an exploitative movie, would almost kind of like hurt the movie itself. I like that the
Yeah.
title doesn't draw any more attention to it other than the fact that it takes place at Christmas and it's dark.
So let me ask you this question though, because I'm interested in the fact that this is yet another movie where when it was released, it was not received particularly kindly. It wasn't a big hit. And it's only in retrospect that everybody suddenly turned around and said, no, this is great. And it's something where I think Black Christmas is one of those movies, and I want to get, Richie, I don't know if you agree or not, where like, doesn't it challenge all of us when like we have our initial reaction to a movie to say, okay, maybe there's something I'm packing into this that
Yes.
is making me react in a certain way that I can't account for right now. I can't really have an opinion about a movie until like 5 years afterward, because suddenly it's going to be a classic and everybody's going to say this is the one that started the genre,
Right.
sort of thing.
I think we all bring our own baggage to whenever we see a movie, but like we're always going to do that. I can try not to when I'm like reviewing a movie or watching it with a more critical eye. But like for me, with this movie, as with most movies from the 70s and even the 80s, and especially like 70s, 60s, 50s, what it brings with it is this kind of unpredictability that our current like Save the Cat era doesn't have. And by Save the Cat, I'm referring to like the style of writing where there's a formula where like you have to introduce the characters on page 7, and then the inciting incident has to happen on page 10, and there's like it breeds better movies. Like there's more good movies being released by studios because there's a formula in the screenwriting, but there's less great movies because everything is more predictable. Everything feels like it's produced on an assembly line. And what's great about this movie is, like we've said before, it was made on the fly. It was made with a lot of love. It takes a bit to get going, to really like identify with the characters, but the filmmakers and the creative team behind it bring so much heart into the making of it that as a result, the movie itself like imbues and shows, like shines a light on that. It has a strong beating heart, even though it's all about death and murder. So that's what's appealing about this movie to me, on top of like everything else we've already mentioned. It feels a little rough around the edges, and that's what's exciting about it. You don't know what's going to happen.
And I know the horror genre in general was not well respected at the time and was just looked down. I know, what's his name? Siskel in particular was just like, this sucks. It's a horror movie. Hate it. Like there was a lot of that going on. I guess if you could compare it to anything right now, it's basically superhero movies. With that, superhero movies in general are well received. The Marvel movies are well received, but I guess big blockbusters in general, like Star Wars or Marvel, tend to be like people love it. And then there's this condescending aura of like, oh, well, I love it for what it is, which is a blockbuster. I think Black Christmas clearly was made, like Richie was saying, with love and talent and skill, which is apparent regardless of whether or not you love the film. I mean, the entire sequence of her running around the house as he's chasing her is, to me, on the level with any great horror film. That those moments in a great horror film, like whether it's Halloween with Michael Myers like sitting up like in the background, I think of that. I think of The Evil Dead with Bruce Campbell running around the basement as everything is blood is flying from the ceiling, or
and it's not just intense from like, oh, this must have been so intense back then. It's still intense. It's intense.
Genuinely intense and terrifying, and the sound effects and like but the images, like the silhouette of him outside the window looking in with his hand.
I love that sequence.
That was so effective. And again, like that's great filmmaking.
Yes.
Like that's great direction. That's great cinematography. Like it looks, it is an effective horror movie. So it's like, I think I've seen enough movies that I thought I hated and discovered that I actually enjoy to know that there's always room for a reevaluation of something. But I think what tends to happen sometimes is because we're all bringing our own baggage to a film, we have our preconceived notions of, if it doesn't do A, B, and C, I don't like it. Or if it's this kind of thing, I'm automatically not going to like it. And I think because horror films were only just starting to see their renaissance in the 70s, like The Exorcist had just come out. And I think, I mean, it was nominated for Best Picture and everything, but I think some people still saw it as like a kind of a exploitation film that was edgy and like shocked people, and that's why it was so popular. But I think once, Jaws and Halloween and films, like as we move into the 70s and 80s, this genre starts to get a little bit more pedigree. But I feel like, again, I mentioned why I think Black Christmas doesn't have as prevalent of a reputation. I really think it does deserve that place in the conversation as like, oh yeah, this is a crucial thing that belongs here. And I'm going to use I know I'm rambling a bit, but I'm going to use another example that I think people leave out of conversations, and it's another Margot Kidder movie, and that movie is Superman.
The best
Superman
movie
is beloved,
of all time.
but for some reason, when we talk about blockbuster cinema, to me, it starts with Jaws, it goes to the next level with Star Wars, and Superman cements it. It's not Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's Superman. And Raiders, of course, is a great film and it's a classic, but to me, Superman often feels like it's left out of the conversation.
Like you almost have to apologize for its campiness when you shouldn't, because it's so true to the character that campiness comes as part of the baggage.
Maybe it's just films Margot Kidder is in. Maybe that's it. But I feel like Black Christmas kind of is like, don't leave it out of the conversation. It belongs in the conversation, and you can see that it belongs in the conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting because Margot Kidder also winds up being in Brian De Palma's Sisters, which
I really want to see.
It's interesting. It's it's a De Palma film. So it's like any De Palma film is like sitting there and being like, okay, somebody needed therapy, but hey, he made movies instead. That's fine. But this is the thing, and I was talking about this, before we all sat down to watch and everything, about challenging this idea that it really starts the slasher genre, because the same year that this comes out, Texas Chainsaw Massacre comes out. I think there's a stronger argument for Texas Chainsaw Massacre giving birth to what we consider the slasher genre than this.
And neither movie influenced the other because they both came out the same year. So
yeah, right. I also think Psycho for sure is
Oh, of course,
there's
of
an
course.
argument to be made for Psycho 2, but in terms of just like sheer like edginess and grit and pushing the bar, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like a force of nature in a way that Black
Mhm.
Christmas isn't. Like Black Christmas is effective, it's thrilling and terrifying when it needs to be, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like it comes from some other plane of existence that is essentially hell incarnate.
Now let me tie this back into what you were saying, where you have Jaws, then you have Star Wars, then you have Superman. And you need to recognize that trifecta sort of thing. I would argue that you have Black Christmas is to what we've been saying. It's an okay script. It's a good script, but it's obviously made, like you said, Richie. It's something made with a lot of heart, a lot of skill. There's a lot of talent behind the camera, and there's a professional. This is the head working. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the gut. Like that is the visceral, oh my God, this is the worst nightmare I've ever had come to life sort of thing going on. So I would argue actually that this is the head, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the gut, and then Halloween is the heart of it all. So these wind up being the two extremes. So Black Christmas does need to be in the conversation as one end of the pole, and then Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the other end. And then what it needed for this genre to actually be established, and the reason I think that it's still Halloween that starts it all, is because that's the one that figured out the middle lane to go down.
Definitely,
it figured out how to go through that.
Halloween is a better version of this movie.
Yes, for sure.
What I like about this movie over Halloween, not that I like this movie more than Halloween, but what I like about this movie over it is that, like, you know who the hero of Halloween is relatively early. In this movie, even though the girls get picked off one by one, any one of them could have survived. Like, any one of them could have been the hero. That's up in the air. You don't really know what's going on. You don't know who's going to survive. And at the end, actually, they all could be dead. So it's really interesting. And I don't think we get another... It launched the whole slasher craze, but also we don't really get another slasher movie on a mainstream release scale like this movie, which makes it really special.
It does make it. I agree with you. I do think it's special for that reason.
But Halloween is better, you know. It is what it is.
Well, I mean, Halloween's more. Well, that's a whole other discussion.
That's a whole other thing to unpack.
Yeah, but I do think that this should be, to your point, Richie. This is something that really should be lauded for the fact that it is unpredictable. That you can't sit down in the first 20 minutes and figure out, all right, this is how it's going to go. Because it throws curveballs at you. And you're like, what happened? Like, suddenly, like, even the missing 13-year-old girl is like, what?
Where did she come from?
Did the guy kill her? Or did he, like, what happened with this?
Has he even left the attic?
Right? Well, there's where's he going to the bathroom? How's he eating?
It's sloppy screenwriting. Like, there again, him being in the attic the whole time was ridiculous. Nobody coming into the house and thinking we should check the attic is ridiculous, because it's like the attic is open the whole time. There's no way nobody heard him or said, like, hey, maybe
well, everybody who's decided to check the attic has died, in fairness.
It's true. But the thing is, there's also this thing where I know for a fact, like, you know, my kid is on the second floor and I'm on the first right now, and I can hear her crying when she cries, right? To think that Billy is making all of this noise on the call from the landline that's in the same freaking house in a room that's like 2 doors away. I'm like, hey, is that... Oh, somebody's in Mrs. What's-Her-Face's room. I think that's the guy. Let's go get him.
Thick walls, very thick Canadian walls. In
yeah, everything's made of cinder block filled with foam.
Yeah, that's how they make them.
Yeah,
in Toronto.
They had to stand up to the blizzard force storms. Yes.
Well, what else is there? Have we said pretty much our piece? Richie, is there anything else you want to add, or are we good to go? Do we want to do our final ratings?
Oh, God, let me just check. I think that covers everything. I took a lot of notes, but really, I spoke from the heart because this movie has a lot of it.
That's true. Well, let's do final ratings. I think it feels right. I feel like we have to do how many calls from inside the house would you give this movie on a scale from 1 to 5. Richie, let's start with you.
I mean, I think it's got its flaws. I think it's pretty goofy. But I would watch it again. I would
Yeah.
make this a regular Christmas viewing. Apparently, this was Steve Martin and Elvis's favorite movie.
Awesome.
Why? I don't know. But according to IMDb, it was a tradition for Elvis to watch this every Christmas for 3 Christmases until he died. And then his family continued on afterwards. And also Steve Martin, according to IMDb, when he was casting Olivia Hussey, or considering casting Olivia Hussey in Roxanne, she thought he was a fan of his work. He was a fan of her work because of Romeo and Juliet. He was like, no, I love Black Christmas. I saw that movie 27 times. All right. I would give it 4 out of 5 calls from inside the house.
I will give it the same. I feel exactly the same way. I think this is beyond there are movies you can be like, oh, I respect its effect on the reputation and the influence it has on a genre, but I don't love it. This, for me, like you said, Richie, I would put this in my regular Halloween rotation. It feels like there's enough going on here, despite the flaws, that even with the flaws, it becomes more charming. But it's an effective horror movie. It's well made, and it's really cool to see something other than A Christmas Story that is it's another iconic Christmas movie. It's another thing you can just put on with the kids and watch with your fam. But John, what about you?
I will say this is that this is a 2 telephone call inside the house movie that through sheer skill and force of will becomes a 4 call.
Hey.
Like this is a movie where in lesser hands, and Bob Clark is never a name where people are going to sit down and say, oh, well, yeah, sure, Scorsese, but do you know the influence that Bob Clark had on the industry? Nobody's going to say that. But he was obviously a guy who had the skills, had the training, and even though he was never going, I mean, A Christmas Story, of course, does elevate him to sort of that discussion level, but like, it's not like his career is the one that's going to draw all of the attention. But I think that as a result, this highlights the fact that there are a lot of incredibly talented people behind the camera that don't get the Spielberg treatment, that don't get the George Lucas fawning biopics.
The vast majority of them don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are people that are showing up to work that know what they're doing, that know how to compose a shot and get the performances and get it out there and have a really solid movie worth seeing that I'll watch, more than once in my lifetime, right? Like, think about that. How many movies are out there? And then for a movie to be good enough for you to say, yeah, I kind of feel like watching that again. That's an accomplishment. Bob Clark made this movie, and this movie is in that category. So this is something that could have gone horribly wrong. And I've been dying to tell this joke make this joke the whole time, because you kept making, the black exploitation movies thing. I was like, you mean like Live and Let Christmas? So, but so yeah, this is a 4 calls inside the house movie.
Oh, that's great. And John, thank you so much for the opportunity to watch it. Finally,
thank you,
after
John.
so long, after so many years after you initially recommended it, we finally got around to it, and it was a delight. And I encourage anyone who hasn't seen it to check it out. But I also encourage people who haven't seen other particular podcasts or listened to them, better yet, on the internet, to check those out. And John, you might know of a couple podcasts, maybe at least one. Why don't you tell the good people at home about it?
Well, I encourage anybody to go to thenerdparty.com and find a podcast for just about every taste that you might have. But if you have a hankering for Star Wars, I happen to co-host a show called Aggressive Negotiations, where we do not waste our time with latest breaking news or speculation or anything like that. We drill into every nook and cranny of the English muffin that is the Star Wars body of work, the Star Wars galaxy. So check out Aggressive Negotiations. And then if you want to pester me online or tell me some reason to send a hate mail to Shawn, you can find me as Kessel Junkie on your social network of choice, KESSELJUNKIE, or over writing things sometimes over on kesseljunkie.com. So that's where you can find me.
Richie, where can the good people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Richie Pepio. You might be able to find me. There's a great D&D adventure podcast that I am a part of with the wonderful Christian Titus. It's on hiatus right now, but it might be coming back soon. It's called Dicey Rolls, but feel free to listen to our earlier episodes because they are funny and wild. I've never played D&D before in like a very like regular setting, and this is kind of my first foray into an actual full-length adventure. And then also go to your favorite streaming site or service, and you might hear me voice audio description for which is a service that most of these streaming sites offer, or you might hear a script that I have written for audio description. So feel free to check that out. You might hear my name or hear my voice.
Woohoo! Awesome.
I am at YeShondorman on Twitter. Follow me there. Yell at me there, as I am always up for for being yelled at, as is clear from my continually inviting John back onto the show.
Oh yes.
Find me there. You can find me on Letterboxd. It's Shondorman there. You can see some reviews and some nice star ratings. A good 4 calls from inside the house rating for Black Christmas is going up. And yeah, I thank you again for listening. I can't appreciate you, the audience, enough. I can't appreciate you two gentlemen enough for being on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will see you again very soon. So take care.